Welcome to the deep dive, where we take your research stack and really try to distill it down into the knowledge you need.
Yeah, making sense of it all.
Exactly. And today we've got a really fascinating deep dive. It sort of reframes where we should even be looking for the keys to educational success.
Mm-hmm.
We're digging into a major new research report. It looked at thousands of young people trying to figure out what factors specifically outside the school gates predict whether they get key qualifications.
Right, we're talking level 2s, level 3s, think, your GCSE equivalents, A-levels, vocational training.
Yeah.
Getting those by age 19.
And here's the kicker, the finding that, honestly, it changes the whole conversation.
It really does.
The researchers found that a huge 84% of the variation, whether someone hits those milestones or not, it comes down to their individual life, their family situation.
Only 16% is about the differences between schools, which is, well, it's surprisingly low when you think about how much focus schools get.
84%. That number isn't just big, it feels like a call to action. Right?
Absolutely. It forces us to look inside the home, into the community. So our mission here is to unpack what the researchers call the home learning environment, or HLE.
HLE.
Yeah, it's that mix of routines, resources, relationships, and we need to figure out which socioeconomic bits, which behaviors, which environmental things are really driving that massive 84%.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Maybe start with the basics, the socioeconomic factors, because, well, income and parents' background, that sets the stage for everything else, right?
Exactly. That's the foundation. The report used pretty standard measures, but two really stood out as, let's say, structurally dominant.
Which were?
Parental education level, what qualifications the parents had, and eligibility for free school meals, FSM. We often use that as a shorthand for, ongoing socioeconomic disadvantage.
Got it. And when you look at that parental education link, wow, the difference it makes is just stark.
It really is. Let's paint the picture.
Okay. So take the high end first. If the main parent in the house had a degree, then 92% of students who weren't on free school meals got their level 2 qualifications. And a pretty high 72% got the level 3s. That's kind of the benchmark, yeah.
That's the success story. But now look at the other end of the scale.
Right.
Take students, again, not on free school meals, but whose main parent had no formal qualifications at all.
Okay.
That level 3 attainment figure, it drops way down to just 32%.
32%.
Okay.
Compared to 72%.
Exactly. That alone shows you the huge, almost intergenerational weight of educational background in the home. And that's sort of separate from just current income.
So when the researchers tried to strip everything else away, control for other factors in their fancy stats model.
Multivariate analysis, yeah.
Right. Did that parental education factor still hold up as a pure predictor?
Oh, absolutely. It was decisive. This is where they use something called an odds ratio, or OR.
Okay, odds ratio. How should we think about that?
Think of it like this. It compares the pure chance of success for one group against a baseline group. So the baseline, the reference group, is parents with degrees. Their odds are set at 1.00.
Makes sense.
Now, students whose main parent had no qualifications, their odds ratio for achieving level 3 was just 0.20.
Wait, 0.20. If the baseline is 1, that means they're, what, 5 times less likely?
That's exactly it. 5 times less likely to get those level 3 qualifications purely down to their parents' educational history.
Wow. That really puts the scale of the challenge in perspective, doesn't it? It's not abstract anymore.
It really does. And that free school meals eligibility at age 15, that also remained a really significant independent predictor of, well, struggling academically.
How significant?
FSM-eligible kids had an odds ratio of 0.47 for getting level 2 qualifications by 19, compared to kids not eligible for FSM. So again, less than half the chance.
So, okay, socioeconomic status, parental education, they definitely create the context. But as you said, that's not the whole 84% story of the home learning environment.
Not at all. That context is crucial, but the HLE is much broader.
Right. So let's move inside the home then. Talk about the day-to-day stuff, the relationships, the routines. This takes us away from just money and more towards behaviors and emotional support.
Precisely. And one of the really strong positive links they found, just looking at the raw correlations, was simply the quality of the relationship between the parent and the child. Warm, supportive relationships consistently lined up with higher attainment.
That feels intuitive, but it's good to see it in the data.
And here's where the HLE can almost act like a buffer, especially for kids facing disadvantage.
How so?
Well, the data showed, for those FSM-eligible pupils we mentioned, if they reported not getting on well with their parent, their level 2 attainment dropped right down to 50%.
50%, okay.
But for the FSM kids who did report getting on well, it was 65%. So that strong relationship seems to partially cushion against the effects of that structural economic disadvantage. It matters.
That's really important. It leads nicely into the homework findings, which I found quite surprising.
Ah, yes, homework.
Because we usually think, it's about parents helping with the homework, right? The whole helicopter parents checking algebra kind of thing.
That's the common assumption.
But the report found something different, more structural.
Exactly. I mean, yes, monitoring home checking it got done. That did show positive links in the simpler analysis. It reflects, structure, accountability, learning time management.
Sure.
But the really decisive factor, when they adjusted for everything else, it wasn't the parental help. It was simply being set homework by the school consistently compared to not getting any.
Wait, really? Just being assigned it? Even if the parent couldn't help or didn't check?
That's what the adjusted model showed. Simply receiving homework regularly meant you had 2.24 times higher odds of getting level 2 qualifications.
2.24 times.
And nearly double the odds, 1.96 times for getting level 3s.
Why? If the help isn't the key factor, why is just getting the assignment so powerful?
Well, the thinking is it signals something important. It's about the school setting an expectation. It embeds a routine of learning continuing outside school hours.
Ah, so it's about structure and expectation.
Yeah, it builds that routine, time management skills, the idea that learning isn't just 9 till 3. It seems to be less about the parent's ability to, say, teach physics, and more about the parent supporting the school's routine and the value of that continued effort.
That's a really interesting pivot. It suggests the school, even though it's only, quote unquote, 16% of the variance,
Right.
it can still have a massive influence on that 84% HLE through things like consistent homework policies.
Absolutely. It's a key lever.
Okay. This is where, for me, it got really interesting. Let's shift to the behaviors in the environment. The factors that were still huge predictors even after you account for socioeconomic status and parental education.
Yes, some of these were incredibly strong.
Right.
We absolutely have to talk about antisocial and risky behavior. The researchers looked at a whole range of things: substance abuse, skipping school, getting involved in crime, general antisocial stuff.
And the impact.
Profound. It acted almost like a guarantee of not achieving.
How profound are we talking? Give us the numbers again, the odds ratios.
Okay. Students who admitted to engaging in more than 4 of these different risk factors.
More than 4.
Their odds of achieving level 2 and level 3 qualifications just plummeted. The odds ratios were 0.20 and 0.22.
Hold on, 0.20. That number sounds familiar.
It should.
That's the same odds ratio, mathematically speaking, as having a parent with no formal qualification.
Exactly the same negative impact, 0.20.
That comparison is, honestly, it's chilling. It suggests tackling that high-risk behavior could be as structurally important as, addressing generational poverty or education gaps.
It absolutely points that way. It tells us that academic failure isn't just about knowledge gaps or lack of resources. It's critically tied to engagement, or rather disengagement, well-being.
So if you're involved in lots of risky stuff, you're basically signaling a complete lack of connection or motivation towards education.
Precisely. That lack of motivation, that disengagement, it builds this massive wall regardless of what other advantages or resources you might theoretically have access to.
And this links maybe to the other big environmental factor the report flagged, feeling safe in your neighborhood.
Yes, that was another strong one.
Why does feeling safe where you live matter for getting qualifications years down the line? It feels a bit indirect.
It does. But think about the lived experience. Students who reported feeling very unsafe in their local area had significantly lower odds of getting level 2s. The odds ratio is 0.66.
So still a noticeable effect. Why?
Well, feeling unsafe isn't just a feeling. It creates chronic background stress, anxiety. You're constantly, maybe subconsciously vigilant.
Right, like your brain's always partly on alert.
Exactly. And that kind of chronic stress, we know it affects higher brain functions, executive function. It undermines your ability to concentrate, to focus on complex learning.
And maybe limits opportunities, too. Like you wouldn't hang out at the park or library if you felt unsafe.
Precisely. It can restrict your use of local resources, community centers, libraries. It limits your opportunity space for positive engagement. So the safety of your physical environment directly impacts your mental space for learning and stability. It's a crucial factor policy often misses.
We should also quickly mention the learning difficulty finding, right?
Yes. That was another strong independent predictor, self-reported learning difficulty.
How did that play out?
Simply put, students who said they did not have a learning difficulty had much higher odds of achieving 4.8. Level 2, the OR was 2.41 compared to those who said they did.
So over twice as likely.
Yeah. It just shows that these perceived or real health and capability barriers remain really influential no matter what other support structures might be in place.
Okay, so we've got parental education, FSM, relationships, homework setting, risk behaviors, safety, learning difficulties. It's a lot of different pieces. How did the researchers tie this all together?
They used a really helpful framework from behavioral science. It's called the COMB model.
COMB. Okay, what does that stand for?
It helps organize all the factors that influence behavior into 3 essential components: capability, opportunity, and motivation. You need all 3 for a behavior like succeeding in education to happen.
Capability, opportunity, motivation.
Right.
Seems like a good way to structure that 84%. So how do our findings map onto this COB?
Okay, let's take capability first. This is basically about whether you can do the behavior. Do you have the necessary skills, knowledge, strength, stamina?
So psychological capability. That clearly links back to things like parental knowledge, that education factor we talked about, and maybe the student's own study skills.
Exactly. And physical capability is where that self-reported learning difficulty or disability comes in. If you physically or mentally can't access or process the learning, you lack capability.
Got it. Okay, next is opportunity.
Right. This is about factors outside the individual that make the behavior possible or prompt it.
So physical opportunity. That's the obvious stuff, like having enough money for books or a quiet place to study, access to tech.
Yeah, resources, time, location. But crucially, there's also social opportunity. This is about cultural norms, social cues, influences from people around you.
Ah, and that's where things like neighborhood safety fit in.
Precisely. Feeling unsafe limits your social opportunity to engage in positive academic activities outside the home. It restricts your environment.
Okay, capability, opportunity. The last one is motivation.
Yep, the engine. This is all the brain processes that energize and direct behavior. Wants, needs, impulses, beliefs, identity.
And this isn't just one thing, right?
No, CMB splits it. There's reflective motivation that's conscious intention, evaluation, planning, like a parent really valuing education highly and encouraging it.
Or the student deciding they want to go to university.
Exactly. But there's also automatic motivation. These are our habits, emotional responses, desires, impulses that happen more, well, automatically.
So those positive, consistent parent-child relationships we talked about, they build positive automatic motivation, security, feeling supported.
Absolutely. And habitual behaviors like the routine of homework being set and maybe checked reinforce that automatic pathway.
And conversely, that high-risk behavior.
That's a massive indicator of low motivation, both reflective, maybe not seeing the point of school, and automatic, driven by other impulses or disengagement. It cuts across both.
Okay, COMB, capability, opportunity, motivation. It does bring it all together. So what does this mean for actually doing something, for interventions? It sounds like just offering, say, extra tutoring isn't enough.
Far from it. Tutoring mainly addresses capability, right? Knowledge and skills.
Yeah.
But if the student lacks opportunity because their neighborhood feels dangerous, or lacks motivation because of conflict at home, or involvement in risky behaviors,
then the tutoring won't stick. You haven't addressed the other essential parts.
Exactly. The big implication is that effective strategies must target capability, opportunity, and motivation, ideally all at once. And crucially, they need to involve the whole family unit, the whole context, not just the student in isolation in the classroom.
That integrated approach makes sense. So what kind of practical ideas did the report suggest based on this? What could interventions look like on the ground?
Well, for family engagement, building on that relationship finding, they suggest things like parenting workshops, but not just generic ones. Workshops focus specifically on building positive communication and reducing conflict.
Right, directly targeting that warmth factor we saw was protective, building motivation and emotional security within the HLE.
Precisely. And given the power of factors like risk behavior and FSM status, they strongly advocate for using data better.
How so?
Using predictive analytics, potentially. Identifying students who show multiple risk flags early on, maybe FSM eligibility, plus early signs of truancy or low engagement, and then tailoring really comprehensive wraparound support specifically for them before they completely disengage.
Proactive rather than reactive.
Exactly. And to tackle the opportunity gaps and those behavioral issues, Community-level support is key.
Like what?
Things like peer mentorship programs, setting up community learning hubs, especially in areas with high deprivation or where safety is a concern.
So those hubs directly tackle the safety issue by providing a safe, structured place to study, boosting social opportunity.
Yes, and academic engagement outside of home or school creates a positive alternative environment.
And finally, what about the school's role? That's 16%. How should it respond differently, especially to those high-risk students? Because that 0.2 odds ratio for behavior is just devastating.
Yeah, the report argues strongly against purely punitive discipline, like suspension or exclusion, especially for these kids.
Because it just pushes them further away.
Exactly. It compounds the problem. If a student is skipping school because of chaos at home or involvement in risky behaviors, excluding them cuts off potentially the only structured positive environment they have access to.
So what's the alternative?
The suggestion is shifting towards restorative practices.
Right.
Rather than purely punitive ones.
Restorative meaning?
Meaning the focus is on understanding the harm caused by the behavior, repairing relationships, and addressing the root cause of the behavior, which, based on COMB, is likely a deficit in capability, opportunity, or motivation, or all three. It's about keeping them connected and addressing the underlying issue, not just removing the problem student.
That makes a lot of sense. Wow. Okay. This has been a really thorough deep dive into what genuinely seems to matter for educational success.
It certainly shifts the focus.
Yeah, the research really forces us, and you listening, to accept that maybe 84% of the action happens outside the school gates. Parental education levels, those warm relationships, and crucially, the massive barrier posed by antisocial risk factors. Yeah. These seem to be core drivers.
And the big picture takeaway is that achieving qualifications isn't simple. It's complex, it's holistic. If we want to genuinely move the needle, especially for the most disadvantaged learners, future efforts really need to think in terms of that COMB model. Strategically build capability, expand opportunity, and strengthen motivation across the whole system around the student. Using that 16% of school influence smartly to improve the quality of the 84% at home and in the community.
Okay, a final thought then for you to maybe chew on. Building on that surprising homework finding. Since the research showed that simply being assigned consistent, regular homework led to over double the odds of achieving level 2 qualifications, regardless of parental help. What structural opportunities or maybe implicit motivational signals does that simple act of assignment actually create? And how can schools make absolutely sure that this basic structural requirement is consistently embedded for every single student?
That finding really does suggest a powerful, yet maybe underestimated leverage point for schools. Something to think about.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing your sources for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.